Mm-mm. Hey guys, and welcome to Dark Arts Podcast. This is where we are talking about exposing the game. Yes, all the manipulation techniques, all the madness from men and women that they use on you guys to make you feel some type of way. And we're going to talk about all those kind of stuff. But before we get deep into today's topic, I want to introduce my lovely guest beside me. Araba, how you doing, sis?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing, Kojo?
I'm alive and well. I'm alive and well. It's good to see you on the platform once more. We know you like to tear singlet in a very educational, higher class manner. Mm.
Just a little bit. Just a little
Just,
bit.
a, just a little bit. I love that. I love that. Well, today's topic we're talking about is self awareness. I know we've spoken a little bit about this some weeks ago. Actually, we were talking about potentially marrying, and we're talking about not actually us potentially marrying, but us talking about marriage, and maybe I'm not feeling being in that space at the moment. But one of the things that really came out and captured my mind was around the topic of self awareness. And so I wanted to kind of get your perspective on what you feel self awareness is for you personally.
Self awareness for me is a lot of things, but
Mm.
I think the biggest thing for me it's accountability
Oh.
and being able to have introspection and look within yourself and hold that mirror up to yourself and not be afraid of what you see looking back at you. That's self awareness. It's being fearless in calling yourself out.
Mm.
And it's not easy to do because I think as humans, we of course have ego and pride, and we want to think that we're such amazing people. But the truth is, we mess up, right? And so self awareness is just that ability to hold yourself accountable, hold a mirror up to yourself, and not be afraid of your reflection, no matter how ugly that reflection may be at the moment.
Mm. I love that as well. And that phrase you use there, no matter how ugly it may look like. What did you mean by like how ugly it may look like, if you don't mind me asking?
Because I think self awareness is difficult when self awareness is difficult when you know you're in a situation that's bad, right? Or you
Mm.
know that you're in a situation that you most likely got yourself into. Um, and self awareness is also difficult when you are in a situation or a place where you've hit rock bottom. And so at that moment, it might be your ugliest moment. It might not
Mm.
be your best moment. It might be a moment where you are literally on the floor, right?
Mm.
And so I think for me, it doesn't mean that you're an ugly person. It just means you're in an ugly phase or ugly stage right now. So yeah.
Mm. I chose the subject self awareness because, aside obviously the conversation we're having as well, I've done some pieces around being an F boy and having the self awareness of being a particular type of F boy that knows he's being an F boy and the difficulty behind it, that dilemma where you can see the ugliness of yourself in the mirror, and you know that this F boy behavior you're doing is deceitful, is ugly, is uncouth, but at the same time the desire within you, which is dark and twisted, which wants to succeed in moving mad, as one would say, right? And and so that self-awareness piece becomes very difficult when you're talking about being an F-boy. So I was kind of like, from your perspective, I want to slightly shift it for you. You're a very pretty woman,
Well, thank you.
very pretty, Araba. And I think we've had this conversation similarly before about you being very pretty and having, in some sense, pretty privilege. And I wanted to kind of ask, in the self-awareness piece, have you ever thought about maybe potentially that being an aspect of how you move, like being pretty? Does that affect your self-awareness? Do you think about that as a self-awareness piece, if I could say that? Maybe you don't, maybe it's just me thinking that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the dark side of me
Mm.
understands that I am what is considered to be conventionally beautiful.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, I do use it to my advantage, whether it's subconscious or consciously. I know that I can maneuver certain situations or get out of certain speeding tickets
Mm.
or have a guy do something for me just by my looks or just by flirting or just however, right? And so um I've kind of played off of that a little bit. I think I think a lot of people don't understand though it's not always a positive thing.
Mm.
So there is a reverse to that, to being able to like use your prettiness to get whatever you want. It's not always like gold and butterflies.
Why isn't it? I mean, someone might be thinking, "Well, how can it not be golden?" But I think I know what you're talking about. But I'm saying someone else might be like, "Wait, hold a minute. If you're beautiful, you can get anything you want, or men can move at your touch of a button. I wish I had that kind of power." What do you mean? There's an ugly side to it, or what do we mean? There's another side to it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Well, because I think there's this authenticity piece that goes with, you never really know if people are being real with you, or
Ooh.
if a guy just wants to be your friend without getting something in the end. You never really understand or know people's intention, right? Like, I think I can say that I don't have many guy friends. And the guy friends that I've had, I don't have them anymore because of some romantic thing that has come up or what have you, right? It can never just be a platonic thing for some reason.
Mm.
And so the downside to the pretty privilege is like you just never know who's being authentic.
I didn't really even think about that. That part of it, because that must be a very difficult thing to consider. I remember when I was younger, I used to play the role of counselor for a lot of the girls in school because I was the ugly kid. Let's be honest, I was the ugly fat kid who was a friend. So let's be honest, I was in the friend zone. But what it did allow me to do was listen to a lot of stories. So all the girls that I thought were, really pretty in school or whatever, there was this, problem, like you said, where it's all of us men had you never could be really sure whether I'm gonna be your friend or whether someone's bars talking. You know what I mean? Like you just never really knew. Now, how does that affect your mindset and mentality then? Because I don't think people fully deep how that can be strenuous on the mind, that you have to almost always think, does this person have another motive? Some people might be thinking, oh, you're pretty, you ain't got problems, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, what can you be complaining about? Oh, a guy likes you, what's the big deal? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's the strenuousness of having to think all the time whether this is more than actually what the person is saying to me or showing to me right now?
Yeah, you end up keeping your wall up and your guard up. Like,
Mm.
I think for me, I am not vulnerable with everyone. Like, only my family members and my closest of closest friends get that vulnerable side of me. But for when I think about like my relationships or friendships with the opposite sex, it's hard for me to be vulnerable or feel comfortable to be open with that person because I almost feel like I don't know your intention.
Mm.
And so to protect myself, I'm just going to keep as much as possible to myself so that I know you can't use it to your advantage to get what you want from me.
Mm.
And I know some people might think, what's the big deal with that? Well, the big deal with that is you can never just be. You
Mm.
literally can never just like be yourself. You literally have to kind of just always walk around thinking this person is out to get me. And you can start to feel trapped in your head. You can start to feel like paranoid and kind of feel like, all right, so this person just wants something from me. It's just a transactional relationship. That's all it's going to be. And that's what you kind of have to expect. Don't expect anything else outside of that, but a give and a take, right? And sometimes it's not even a give and a take. Sometimes it's just a give and a give.
Mm.
It's just, okay, I'm gonna have to give something up or, whatever. But yeah, I kind of feel like the downside to it is just not feeling comfortable to be myself.
Mm. It's interesting because I think obviously because obviously you've been on our platform and Little Black Book, and I remember the first time I saw you, and I always say this to everyone. I say first impressions are a big thing. When you see someone, you cannot get out of the impression that you see someone. If someone's beautiful, you're going to see it. There's nothing you can do to change that. And as a man, I'm also having to be very conscious and aware. And I think I've spoken to you about this before. I said when you're on a platform and you own a platform as a man, you have to also be very careful and cognizant the fact that even the way you move, you got to be careful because you might say something or do something that could be considered in a particular way. And these are the things that we're talking about, being self-aware as well, how your behavior can come off to other people. But I want to almost kind of like ask you as well, like you're saying that there was an important comment you made there about just being. And I think I've heard that before from specifically black women in terms of not even just being pretty or anything, just in terms of just being almost like being human and just being able to exist. So I want to kind of get a bit more of that perspective when you said you almost can't just be. What does that really mean?
Yeah, I think also because of the way I look, people expect me to be prim and proper and never raise my voice, never be angry, never get loud. I always have to be courteous, respectful, kind. I can't get passionate. Once my voice level reaches a certain tone, it's like I'm reaching that stereotype of angry black woman, right? And now I
Mm.
start to become ugly if I start to use a tone
Ooh.
that's outside of what is expected of pretty people to use, right? And the thing is, I'm not always prim and proper. You know me. I curse.
Uh, yeah.
I
I
curse
cuss a little bit.
I curse a little bit, sometimes a lot of it, right? And I'm not afraid to call someone out. I'm very passionate. I talk with my hands. I can go toe to toe with someone argumentatively and not feel a way about it. Like, there's parts of me that are just like, I'm a little rough around the edges too.
Mm.
And so, unfortunately, I kind of feel like I'm not allowed that same grace because it's
Mm.
like, oh, you look a certain way. Why are you acting like that? And just as a black woman, period, of course I can't just be myself because I'm already dealing with the negative tropes of black women are this, black women are that. So it's okay if I want to gain some type of capital in this world, if I want a mate, if I want to secure a mate and look the best, if I want to attract more people, then I almost have to like not be myself. I have to be this perfect, prim and proper person.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ooh. No, you know what? That's so interesting, to hear that perspective. And I hope that anyone who's listening to this, especially if the men are listening to this, because we're talking about this real stuff. Because I think we don't get this perspective. We don't hear this perspective on the other side, which is, um, the just being able to be yourself. You know what I mean? I know as black men too, we have our own things as well. Like, we know when you go into a workforce, you just can't be yourself. We know everyone got a little white voice that they know they put on. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Sometimes your name, even the way you pronounce it, you might even pronounce it a certain way. It's Kojo, not Kojo. We know there are certain things like that. You know what I mean? So we are cognizant of the fact that there are effects on us as black men, but I think sometimes we don't get to hear our partner side in the sense of our female cohorts and stuff and what they're kind of going through. And that's why I wanted to kind of tap into a bit more about the being and just being able to be yourself. And maybe we can tap into that a bit more in terms of, because you're also a very self-aware person. How does that, do you almost get like trapped in your mind then? Because like, let's say for instance, that you want to be you, but you also know the power of playing the, I don't want to say playing the character, but playing the role. That if you play it in a particular way, you get a particular result. But then because you're self-aware, you're able to think about why you have to do something. Excuse me. Does that affect you? Do you get almost stuck in the middle sometimes trying to choose between the two?
Honestly speaking, I don't.
Okay, love
And
that.
because I am so self aware, that means I also understand the repercussions of my
Mm,
actions. So I know that if I decide to act out, if I decide to be myself, if I decide to actually just be, then that comes with the consequences. And I'm okay with that.
wow.
I've come to terms with it. I
Okay.
think I've said this before in the Will and Jada, the Chris Rock debacle,
Mm,
and I mentioned something to the sort of, you know, a lot of people disagree with Will's action of slapping Chris. Cool. But I feel like if he in his head came to the notion that I know the consequences to my actions and I'm okay with that, I can't really fault people for what they do. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm self-aware in the regard that, hey, I know it might not be a good outcome for me if I decide to just be in my natural, passionate, talkative state. I still I'm just gonna do it. So just
mm.
understand that after it, you're gonna face criticism.
Yeah, I love that point as well about what you're saying, understanding the consequences. I think that's really the biggest part of when we talk about accountability, self-awareness, those really trigger words in this generation. But because I was from talking from an F boy, previous F boy, position, and in the piece I was writing, I was saying that um that is probably the most difficult thing for me, in the sense of I know what the consequences are of this action,
Mm.
and yet still I have to choose to bypass those particular thoughts. I think that's the trap of self-awareness. Whereas like sometimes when I feel like other people may not be as self-aware, they can almost do the action and not think about the consequences. So at the end, they're like, I didn't really think of it, I just did it. Whereas me, it's like, no, I actually thought about it. I knew that if I did this, this is what's going to happen. More than likely, this is what's going to happen, and I'm still going to choose to do the wrong thing. So I don't know if that makes sense for you in that
I
sense.
think, and you know something, because when you say something like that, I automatically think of F boys and how that's why they are such devious, evil creatures. Because you sat there and you ran through how things could go wrong, how things could impact all parties involved, and you still chose to go down that lane.
Mhm.
That is some corrupt type of ish, if you know what
Mm,
I'm talking about. That's some corrupt type of ish. Like, and that to me is like what what comes with self-awareness. The bad part
mm,
about it is like once you cross that threshold, now you have to live with that decision. Are you okay with living that with that decision?
mm.
So
Yeah, I definitely agree that as well. And I think with the self-awareness piece, you have to live with that superpower. It's a superpower in the sense of it's great because it works and keeps you accountable, and you know that this might be an outcome, and I have to be very conscious of that. But like I said, the opposite end is, you know, you do find yourself in that space where you have to question an action in the particular time and that season in that moment.
yeah.
And you spoke about pretty privilege, and for those people, I mean, we lightly touched on it. And so, does it ever get to a point where you're like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't use my superpowers, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be responsible like Superman. You know what I mean? Like, does it get to a point where you have to you get to that point where you think about the responsibility of the power that you hold, as Ben said himself, great power comes great responsibility.
You know what? I only tell myself, oh, don't do it if I know it's going to either lead somebody on
Okay.
or it's just gonna work against me in the long run.
Mm,
Like I only do it if it's a temporary situation. So like this is a random example, but like okay, if a cop stops me, right, that's
mm,
when I'll turn the pretty privilege on, or if I need help carrying bags down the stairs, and I do it in certain situations with people I don't know,
mm.
with people that I feel like it's going to be a quick in and out.
I understand what you're saying.
But if it's like someone who's been in my life for a while, I'm not going to do it consciously. I would
Mm.
say subconsciously it might come out a little
Surface.
bit. Right, of course.
So you're an F girl.
Am I really? I don't think I am. Not by choice, at least. At least not by choice. Um,
I'm playing. I'm listening.
I've had my moments, Kojo. Like I've definitely had my moments where I know I just got out of a relationship and there's a
Mm.
guy who it was this one guy I could think of, and thank God nothing went down with him anyway, because
It was
whatever.
long. Mm.
But but I remember using the same line that has been used on me by F boys is, I'm just not ready yet. I'm not in that space, whatever, whatever. So I've had my fair share of like not being the best.
Mm.
Um, but like I said, the thing about self-awareness is, and a lot of F boys are very self-aware.
Mm.
They know what they're doing and they're okay with it. And I said, hey, if you know the consequences and you're okay, then hey, do you. Live it up. Just know thunder, fire, and brimstone will fall down on you. So if you're okay with that, go ahead. Have all the women in the world. Have all of them. But just
Mm,
know what's waiting for you at the end of the tunnel.
yeah, I mean, again a reformed F boy, I think um these things do come up um in terms of obviously, dealing with the opposite sex, of course, and when you become aware, I think the most difficult part is realizing how much of our behaviors can be considered manipulative. For instance, let's say, okay, so for instance, like using superpowers, right? So I understanding beauty, understanding for even for men, physique. If I wear a top today, I know I've worn this top and I know the top's slightly tight. I don't mind. I know it's gonna show the muscles. And I know it's gonna get them to see. I'm happy with that. But then when you start to really deep it, these are all little slight, trinkets and little small lines of manipulation that we use in a particular way, whether it's to move someone or to get them to shift their position, whatever. And you start to realize as you become more self-aware that there's a lot of things that can be considered a manipulative kind of behavior. Now, the word manipulative is already negative. So as soon as you kind of put that on there, someone's like, oh my God, no, no, no. But it's like we understand the power of doing certain actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So even though we're talking about F boys, I'm even bringing it well before we get to F boys, and we're going to get there as well. But before we even get to those type of people, I'm even looking at us as normal people. You know what I mean? The dress or the shirt that you're wearing, why men particularly wear LV belt. I don't know why they do this. This is in UK. They do this LV Prada belt. I don't do it, but again, and then they wear the shirt and make sure the shirt is hanging just above the belt so you can see the belt. Negro, what you trying to do? Like we know exactly what you're trying to do, right? It's like these little things that we do, knowing that when I come into your presence, especially if I whisper and you're in a particular way, you know how that can move. So we do these little things that we know that can shift people and move them. Um, I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you a question. I want you to reveal one trade secret of the ladies. Because you see, every day is not every day. Come and trade and let the men tell you the secrets. Sometimes let the ladies tell secrets too. I need one trade secret. That ladies be using to shift the men. Just to get them to move and maneuver. And I know you have skills, so you should let us know what one of those trade secrets are.
So this is not reflective of something I do,
Okay.
at least not
Anymore? Or
consciously. No, like not at all. But I know I've heard some of like my friends or like
okay.
other women talk
Talk about
about
it. Fair
something
enough.
that they do to kind of like soften their man or get things to
Oh,
soften their position is they cry.
yeah.
Like in the middle of an argument or when they've been asking for you to do something and you haven't done it, the tears just come out. And for
Man.
some women, it's you can't help it. Like I know I'm a very
Yeah.
emotional person. I cry just because I'm sensitive. Like
Mm.
you can ask my ex. Like every minute it was a cry, cry, cry about something. But that's because I'm a sensitive person, right? But for some women, they understood that men don't like to see women cry.
Mm.
That's really why they avoid certain things, like telling their women certain things or want to avoid certain arguments because they don't like to see their women cry. So I've heard a lot of women and some of my friends say, if I walk my way, I just start crying, and all of a sudden
It
the thing
works.
just gets swayed in my direction.
Wow.
Yeah, so just like really playing on emotions
Mm.
is, I think, a manipulative tactic of women sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I was speaking to a friend just before this as well, and I was talking about maybe you can disagree with this, so we can have a little conversation. I said to him, as a man, if you're a good man, this is not for those men who are trash, those men who are controlling, abusive. We don't count them in this.
Right.
Good men. I said, if you don't regulate instances like that, like you just mentioned there, right? If you don't regulate those instances and tell the woman, listen, that can't run, stop that. If you don't, it leads to further issues down the line. And I was saying to him that as I'm learning more about male and man and woman, or however you want to say it, people might get offended. But as we learn about the man and woman and their relations, I start to realize that with men, you have to start leading in a way that is. There are times where the woman will give into her emotions or emote. I would like to say, her emotions will emote. She'll naturally just the emotions will come out and she will yield to the emotions. Not even necessarily that she's trying to manipulate you per se, but she'll naturally yield to the emotions. And you as a man have a choice to make. Do I also yield to emotions, or do I tell you in that moment, this is not the proper response that's needed for this particular action? And if you don't do that, what happens? You start setting a precedence for what you just said, which is the woman begins to learn, because she's a human being, she's going to learn that this action leads to this particular response,
Yeah.
which is what we're talking about again, self-awareness. Because if she can choose now at a point in time to say, I can use a superpower or I could not, it depends how I feel.
You know what I will say to that though?
Yes.
I agree to some extent. I
Mm,
do think in certain situations the man can choose in that moment to lead and direct and make sure that a standard is set. Like, hey, it's not always that we have to cry whenever we're having a conversation. You know what I'm saying? Because I do think some women abuse that. However,
mm,
speaking from experience,
yes.
and I'm just speaking for myself. I can't speak for other women. I could because I've watched closely my friends. They've experienced the same thing. But oftentimes in those moments where we've just easily cried, it's because we generally did not feel safe or protected in that moment. And so
Mm,
the wrong thing for our men to do would have been to say, hey, that's not correct in this moment, or we don't need to be doing that. That would be like the wrongest thing for you to do, because that
mm,
shows me you're actually not understanding the issues that need to be addressed. You just don't want to see me cry. But you have to ask
mm,
yourself, why does she keep crying? You know what I'm saying? Like, for some women, they keep crying for manipulation purposes, cool. But for other women, they literally feel like they're being drained. Like, I know for
mm,
me, with the person that I was dating, I felt like I could not express how I was feeling. Whenever I expressed how I was feeling, I was being gaslit, I was being dismissed, I was being invalidated. And so, what was I going to do? I was going to cry, because that's the only way I felt like I could express my emotions or emote and it not be policed.
mm.
So, I think different situations calls for different protocol. In
That's a
some
good point.
situations, you could tell this girl is she's just trying to, get me to shut up. In other situations, damn, maybe I'm not really covering her like I'm supposed to be covering her. Maybe I'm
Mm,
not really getting down to the meat of the situation. So I feel like men need to investigate in that situation. But this all goes to
mm.
how well do you know your woman as well? You
That's
know what
true.
I'm saying? Because if you really knew the person that you were dealing with, then you actually wouldn't have to investigate.
Mm, that's a good point. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's a good point. I like that point.
Oh,
Make
I
sure you
know.
investigate, guys. Make sure you investigate. You know what I'm saying? It's not every woman that's out here trying to snatch you. All right, emotionally. All right, so investigate, man. Them ladies, behave yourselves. All right, cool. No, all jokes. But okay, so we've reached kind of like the halfway mark. So let's talk about the main meal. Okay, the main meal, because this is called Dark Arts Podcast. This is where we talk about the darkest arts, meaning the manipulative tactics, some of the things that men and women use to get their leg over or get their hand to win in certain duels and battles emotionally, mentally with the opposite sex. So, F boy, when you hear the term F boy, what's your first thoughts?
F boy, first thoughts is someone who will literally turn your life upside down
Mm,
on purpose too. Like, you don't
mm,
have accidental F boys.
There's no accidental F boy. You sure?
There's no accidental F boys. No, they're very intentional with what they do. Very intentional.
Mm. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. And for you, F boy so you said basically turns your life upside down. I mean, have you ever experienced the life being turned upside down?
Yes.
Bring us into that world. What was that like, having the world
I
turned upside down?
I've experienced too many to count. Like you're
Mm.
asking me to recall an experience. I'm just like, which one? Which one should I start with? Do we have enough time? Like, can I go down the list? That's literally how many F boys I have experienced, and I'm unfortunately I feel like I'm still experiencing them to this very day.
Mm.
And I think you know what's crazy? I'm literally sitting here trying to think of my craziest F boy experience, and I have too much to choose from.
Damn.
That's how bad it is. Yeah,
Damn.
that's how bad it is. Like, and okay, I think one of the craziest F boy experiences I've had was this guy who I dated for a few months.
Mm.
And, we were doing whatever we were doing. Like, I don't know if you want to call it dating, talking, but it got to a point where I was like, what are we doing for real? Like, for real, for real. Like, is this going down a relationship road? Do you see me as a long term, whatever, anything at this point? And I remember looking through his Instagram one day and I saw pictures of him and his ex girlfriend. Right. And at this point, we were like 9 months into whatever we were doing. And I asked him casually, calm, relaxed. I said, hey, I noticed you still have pictures of your ex girlfriend on your page. Like, what's that about? This man called me crazy. He called me a stalker. He called me delusional, insecure. Like I was everything in the book just for asking him a question. And now he is married to that same girl that was on his Instagram that I asked him about. And so it's like you knew you were going to go back to this girl. You married this woman, but I was the crazy and delusional person. I was the crazy and delusional person. Okay. Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah. See, what we're not going to do is that. He would literally deny my reality as if the reality did not exist in order to get what he wanted from me. And it was perfect. It was perfect because he did when someone lies so well, like it almost becomes the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So at that point, I was just like, you know what? Maybe it's me. Maybe I actually was delusional. Maybe it's harmless that they have pictures together on Instagram, right? And this man, everything that looks shaky to me, I would bring it up to him, and he would flip it automatically on me, automatically
Mm.
on me. It was like I would say, hey, can you not raise your voice at me during an argument? Oh, but why don't you see your problem is you always have your volume up. Like it will become something he would just make something up on the spot. Like
Damn.
why you always have your volume up anyway? That's why the voice is too loud. Turn your volume like completely ignoring the fact that you're actually yelling. He would find a way to kind of like pin it on me. Then I would start turning my volume down. Like maybe my volume is a little too high. Maybe that's why he sounds too loud in my ear. No, he was actually yelling at me. You know what I'm saying? So it's knowing that you're doing something wrong, but because you can get away with it with that particular person, you do
Mm.
it anyway. He knew
That's
he
a
could get away
very.
with it with me because I would
Oh,
eventually fold. I would buckle. My knees would bend.
why
I
would your knees bend?
because I was desperate for love.
Mm.
I was in my early 20s. I'm African. Like I'm accomplished. I have everything that I could ever ask for. except for a husband and kids.
Husband.
So of course my knees would bend, because if my knees don't bend, then I'm not going to have a man.
Mm.
You know? So he knew he could get away with being an F boy with me.
Mm. I'm going to come back to the accountability piece. I think that's a good point to also hit on as well within that. Um, so obviously encountering these F boys, what was the effect? What was the after effect of encountering some of these F boys? Like what did that do to you, to the aftermath of encountering an F boy?
It really broke my self-esteem.
Mm.
So I would start questioning things about myself. Like, am I really beautiful? Am I smart enough? Am I good in bed? Am I, like, I would really start thinking I wasn't good enough for anyone. And
Mm.
I always carried this from childhood, just because, I'm a dark skinned woman, and I know it's cool to be dark skinned now, but it wasn't always. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Especially when you live in the US and you deal with colorism. Um, I got it bad. I remember someone said to me when I was in kindergarten, this happened when I was like 5. Someone said to me, because of how dark you are, you're never going to find a husband. And something like, yeah, that stuck with me. Like, I think to this day it sticks with me. And I
Mm.
know, like, I'm beautiful, whatever. And there's plenty of men who marry dark skinned women who want a dark skinned woman. But whenever something happens with a guy and we don't work out, I always go back to that. Like,
Mm.
I'm too dark. And it didn't help that a lot of the guys that I fell out with or whatever, they ended up being with a lighter skinned woman too, or cheating on me, or not cheating on me, but like
Leaving you for someone else.
leaving me for, yeah, right, leaving me for someone who's lighter or whatever.
Mm.
And they might not even have been prettier than me, right? They just had the fairer skin, as they would like to say.
Mm.
So it definitely broke my self esteem dealing with these types of men. Just because their brokenness projected onto me, and I received that. I had like
Mm.
receptors to their brokenness. Um, and I would internalize their brokenness as my own and think, okay, well, now I have to operate in this broken state. So,
It's interesting as well. You mentioned the fact that, something really interesting, like, as a young girl, hearing that, if because you're dark skinned, you won't find a husband. And I always say that there's a scripture always says that our tongues can be like poison. There are words that are said to us that don't kill us on the spot.
mm,
They sit in the system. And sometimes these words never leave. You're having to fight these words for the entirety of your life. And I think that's what you're kind of talking about in that instance as well. How much did that play a role in, for you now being self-aware? How much do you think that played a role in some of the relationships that you've been in, and that haven't necessarily been the greatest in the sense, but how much do you think that played a role in you and how you behaved in relationships later on the line?
I think it made me feel like I always had to prove myself, and that
Mm.
prove like I deserve to be here. Like, I'm just as good, if not better, than the light skinned standard of beauty
Mm.
or whatever. So it always made me feel like, you know, I had to constantly live up to um, this image of just always being on 10. Like, you will never catch me having a down day where I wear sweats or have my hair tied or no makeup, right? Like, now of course I do. Like, you can catch me in a comfortable state with no makeup, whatever. But in my earlier 20s, I felt like I always had to be polished. I always had to present well. My hair always had to be, you know, done, um, just to feel like I could have a seat at the table.
Mm.
So I felt like I always had to like perform, if you will.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. That's tough. I think it's tough, and I'm now giving the lens of F boy lens, and I'm like, we don't know the story, but we do sense the energy. So like when you're battling with trying to make sure that you're good enough, we are seeing that the end result of that battle. So when we see the chink in the armor, we go for you,
Mm.
you know? So like although we see the beauty, that's why at first, like when women like say I'm not interested, or whatever, and a man goes off, he goes, all right, cool, cool. But if he gets past that first point, that beauty that she has is gone. Because after that, now they become familiar. I'm like, I now know you a little bit. That beauty no longer shocks me. It no longer puts me on a, ooh. It's now like, I know you now. Now I know you. Now let me see where the chinks are in the armor. Oh, I can see this. And oftentimes, this is done in milliseconds. It is not done in months, weeks, and time. Oftentimes, this is done the moment I meet you. And I
Wow.
keep telling people this as when I was in that stage, what you were doing was it's like Pokemon battles. You literally go to someone, you see a girl, and you literally can automatically tell what level she's at, regardless of how pretty she is. It's the way she talks, it's the way she walks, it's the way that she upholds herself, and you can even see like some people when you encounter them, they're already shaking. You're like, babe, why are you shaking? And then that tells me you're not confident. You're nervous. All
Mm.
right. If you're nervous, you're gone. All right, cool, we got her. Or you see a girl's like, you know what? You might say, "Oh, you're really, really pretty," and she's like, "Oh, really?" And I'm being facetious when I'm saying that, but it's like when she takes a compliment, it's like she can't take the compliment. You're gone. We got you. Like because we know you're not confident,
Yeah.
and if you're not confident, it means you probably won't uphold your boundaries very well either. So we're hunting. You know what I mean?
Wow. That is crazy, but it makes sense. Like if she's not confident, she probably won't uphold her boundaries. That is so sick. I, that is so sick.
I'm so
Like,
sorry.
because when you really hear, this is how some men think, some women too, probably. But that is so like predatorial.
Yes, it is predatorial. We hunt.
Oh my
We
gosh.
hunt. And it depends. Again, there are different types of F boys. There are F boys that are looking for emotional connections. Some are looking for sex. Some want your money. Some want to destroy your life. And destroy your life is the worst one because he will gaslight you. He will lie. He'll cheat on you. He'll do everything. Those are I call them. They are demons. They are demon levels where they want to destroy your whole entire life. But other F boys tend to fall into particular areas. They want your money, or they want your body, or they want your emotions, depending on what they want. You know what I mean? And you're absolutely right. There's a predatory aspect to this particular aspect, right? Because we are hunting. We are hunting, and this is why I say that these when we talk about F boy and talk about how we move, a lot of guys don't realize that until you use the word, yo, your behavior is abusive and it's predatory. But because we cover it up by saying even the word F boy is a covering up word,
Mm,
really you're an abuser,
mm.
right? But we don't put that, if you don't put that word on there, it doesn't give it the weight. So F boy makes it sound really sweet. It's like, oh, he's an F boy. No,
It makes
he's
it
an
sound,
abuser.
it makes it sound normal.
May
Like
sound normal.
yeah.
Yes, which means now the behavior isn't going to really be checked. It's more of a case of, oh, he's an F boy, leave him to be, he's an F boy. Do you know what I mean? But we do hunt. We do hunt, and we do. I remember, one of some of my guys back in the day, and I would just be watching how they move, right? And these guys are playing chess in their heads. Like it's some people move by instinct. Some of these men do move by instinct. It's not they are self-aware in some aspect, but they're not fully aware. It's almost it's a autopilot thing for them, right? That they just do. But when I watch some of the movements of them, it's so interesting because they literally almost it's like playing chicken. So let's say like he comes in the room, he's already looked which girl has moved. It's like musical statues and you moved. You shouldn't have moved. The moment you showed the eye went up, the girl went, oh, he's clocked it already. He's clocked you gone, oh, and he's gone, you're done. You're in. I'm in. Bro, I'm gone. And I was like, wait, how does he see that? How does he just get? But because he's trained himself over the amount of years to take advantage of these opportunities. It's a bit like if it's like playing a sport. The more you play the sport, the more you practice the sport, the quicker you are to respond to the environment that's around you and how to quickly adapt. The same thing with being an F boy. It's like when you're in a room, you automatically become aware straight away what girls are feeling you, what girls are not. Okay, which girl want to have to work a little bit harder? Okay, if I want that girl, she's not really giving me the attention. I might have to work a little bit harder. But once I get into her presence, let's see how she reacts. Does she give me the time and the energy? Okay, when we're talking now, when I'm having some people it takes a little bit longer, but a lot of times with us as F boys, they know from the jump. As soon as they see you from far, they're like, ah, even the way she's walking, look, okay, yeah, she's gonna get broken. Yeah, she's gonna get
Oh
broken.
my goodness.
We're
But
gonna
my
see.
question is,
Mm,
besides the predatorial nature of
yeah,
men, why do men do this? Like, is
for
it,
sport.
oh my God, that's demonic?
I mean, listen, it's fun. It's fun. You ever ask the British
Or
people
go
why
to an
they?
arcade.
Huh?
Like, go to an
Listen,
arcade. What?
it, the trouble is there is some level of um, pleasure that's derived from being able to swindle someone in a particular way. You know what I mean? So like it's and again, there are, like I said, because there are different types of F boys, I would say that there are the boys that want to destroy you. I would say less about pleasure and it's more about power and control. That's completely, we're talking about different kind of thing, right?
Okay.
Those ones who want to destroy you, it's less about sport and more about power and control. You
Okay.
know, and there's an air of misogyny in there, but I would say there's almost an air of hatred. Oh, that's misogyny, but it's in the sense of there's a pain that they haven't. There's a pain that's so deep in them that they're acting on autopilot that someone else has to also feel what they are feeling. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? And
Okay.
some of them are narcissists, so that's another story. But let's just say someone is wanting to play. He's you know what? He just wants sex, and he knows if I tell her sex, she's gonna probably not want to go there. So let me lie about it, whatever, right? Those type of guys that are doing that, you know, why they do it. Sometimes it's because it's a sport. Can I do it? And then the conversations we have amongst ourselves as men is problematic. I'll be honest with you. It's like, brother, listen, I just seen this girl, you know. But what's she saying? Oh, fam, I think I can get it, you know. Brother, are you sure, fam? Yeah, I think I got it. I seen the way she's looking at me. I'm on it. Hey, you're the don, you know. Hey, I, fam. Do your thing, do your thing. There is no accountability there. There, like, we are not holding each other accountable in some of the cases. I know there are some good men out there, so I'm not saying they're not, but I'm saying when we're in that zone, you have to understand F boys don't hang around with good boys. They hang around with other boys that are either F boys or people who are willing to accommodate the F boy behavior. Because the moment you start opposing me, I'm feeling annoyed. Like, bro, get over it. Do you know what I mean? So I was hanging around with a lot of F boys. I wasn't doing what they were doing. I had a girlfriend. I was cool. I didn't want to entertain it. But all their behavior rubbed off on me eventually. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? And all it did was release what I already wanted to do anyway. It just gave me more impetus to do so. You know, bad company corrupts good morale, they say.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of us is sport. And sometimes it's just like we feel like you can't handle the truth. We just want sex. And then when we say it, you're gonna say something long. Oh, that's so vile. You just want to treat me like an object. Yes, I do. I just want to have sex. I don't want to have this conversation.
But the crazy thing is, there are women out there who don't mind just having sex with y'all.
Yeah, we don't want them.
Oh, see, now y'all are greedy. Like,
And that's the truth. You're
y'all
absolutely right.
want to play games and then choose who you want to play games with.
Yes. Because again, a lot of it's power and control.
But the same power and control that these men are practicing is the same power and control that leads a lot of women to suicide, or that
Mm,
leads them to.
talk
I've
about it.
seen women who have become bipolar because of the depression that they've experienced in their DV relationships.
Yeah.
This power and control leads to the insecurities or the emotional turmoil and trauma and PTSD that a lot of victims, and I'm going to say victims
Yes.
just because of my
Mhm.
line of work.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I work for National Center on Violence Against Black Women, and just I think just hearing, and which I appreciate hearing because I feel like I never knew this, But it's so scary to think how to some F boys, it's just power and control to them.
Mm.
But in the larger picture, the damage that is being done is irreversible.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, y'all are really playing with human lives.
Yeah.
Playing with human lives. And thankfully, there are men who are reformed, such as yourself. And I'm sure others are still working towards that, which is good. But you think about all the men who know that they're doing this and just don't care and
Mm.
don't even get to see the damage that is done on the other side. That to me is just like, wow, that is sick. That is
Yeah.
literally sick. It's sick.
Mm. I
It's
can't.
sick.
I can't say another word. That's the honest truth. I'll just tell you. I think I put this before. I said, um, that oftentimes that's what you will know it's power and control, because when a woman does want to offer, let's say, oh, she's down to have sex, he might do it, but that's not intriguing to him. I want you to be like, no, not really. I'm not interested. I don't want the sex. Then it's like, oh, okay, cool. I want to play a little bit. She's gonna. I want to make her want me. That is the power and control. It's that level of getting someone to turn and now desire you and have power over them. If you say you want to have sex, I say I want to have sex. It's like there's no real power in that. You want to have sex. All right, cool. I mean, I ain't, you know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm notching my belt, but
So
it
it's
ain't.
too easy.
It's too easy. But it's not even just too easy. It's no longer. There's nothing. There's nothing there. You've offered what I wanted in terms of satisfying me physiologically, but there is another part which is mental that a lot of these men, that's why I said that a lot of them are not fully aware of this stuff. They understand that the balls are talking, but this part here where there's something cracked in there, they haven't fully understood that I'm operating from this modem and this operating system, and this operating system leads me to places where I'm dealing with certain women, and if you offered sex, I wouldn't. That person might not take it. I want the girl that says, "No, I'm not about that life." Da, 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 da. That's the girl that he wants. he's, he's, that's, that's the one
Wow.
that he wants. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's wild.
Wow. I mean, I think the scariest thing for me is this behavior. I know it goes on. I know
Mm,
it happens. I know it's done. I think the scariest part is I don't know for many men if there's ever an end to this behavior. Like I've
okay.
seen married men
Still do it.
still engage in this behavior.
Mm,
Like married for
yeah.
years. Some newlyweds, some 10, 15
Older.
years.
Mm,
And it's just like, this really is a sport to y'all.
mm,
And I think when I got older, I always thought, cheating is like the worst thing in the world. It's so vile, which it is. But I think for some people, it's not even about like having an emotional connection with another person. It's literally just about the conquering feeling that they get when
mm,
it's literally just about stimulating that, that tick.
mm.
And that to me is like that can lead you down a dangerous road.
100%.
It's it's
100%.
super it's super dark. It's super dark. And um I feel like then though the responsibility doesn't fall completely on the person, the victim, if you
Mm.
will, to just be self-aware enough to where you avoid that, or is there enough blame to go around? Like, what do you think?
Oh, definitely there's enough blame to go around.
Mhm.
Definitely. Everyone has to be accountable for themselves. That's when we talk about accountability. What I mean by that is everyone has to be accountable for themselves.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about this, I'm saying, look, there are tricks to the trade that, as an F boy, I can tell you this is what we're looking for. We are
Hmm.
looking for a criteria,
Hmm.
right? I can. That's why I said it's predatory, but I can tell you, like, some of you ladies, honestly, y'all need therapy quick, because we're gonna keep on hunting. They're not gonna stop. Do you know what I'm saying? They're always gonna keep on, because there's always a batch of men who take things by force. This is the world we live in, unfortunately, because they have physical strength. They abuse that part of them. But like, just like anything, when someone's like, if your house has been burgled, you have to take procedures now after that now, which is put some security cameras. You might have to put up a fence. You know what I'm saying? Like now, it's not your fault that you necessarily got robbed. Someone saw your house and said, "I want to rob you," but unfortunately, you're gonna have to deal with the consequences. So now we have to look at ways of preventing this action from potentially happening again. And one of those ways is number one, making sure you actually hold to your boundaries. It's
Mhm.
literally the number one rule, because no matter what, if I'm coming to you and I'm like, I'm not, this is what I want, and this is what I want. Let's say I'm saying to you, oh, unless this guy has completely, and most of these F boys, and there's demons and there are principalities. There are some principality men out there who literally everything is a lie. Everything. And then there's some demons who lie about certain things. And there are underneath that witches and warlocks, the men that use wizardry skills, use their penis to try and get you to be lost in the source. Most people operate on the warlock level. It's very rare that you have the principality who's an absolute narcissist. That person, no matter what we say, he's gonna you. It's very difficult, but there are still gonna be signs to that person when they're coming towards you.
Mhm.
You must hold a frame of what you actually want. We are hoping you don't know what you actually need.
Mhm.
Then, when we see that, we then fill in the gap for you because we understand something that some people don't want to be honest about themselves with, which is there is parts of you that are going to respond to someone even if they're dark. Like if let's say for instance, I always say like people always laugh at me when I'm talking about, oh, I like Zadia. And I said, because I'm honest about the darkness that's inside me. There's a part of me that will always like toxicity. And there's an attractiveness that's there. Now I won't date that, but I'm gonna be honest with you, there's a dark part of me. Now, if you don't acknowledge that, what tends to happen is the person who on the other side, I tap into that.
Mm.
I tap into that. That part of you that desires that, I'm gonna tap into it.
Mm.
Paul says obviously, I do things that I don't want to do. That is the desire that's in there of you that you don't want to acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge it, there is a guy out there who's good looking enough, suave enough, smooth enough to talk to that part of your desire and get you to move.
Yeah.
Just be honest with yourself. There is a part of you that likes certain things, and it's okay. But I know that's not for relationship format. Once you can acknowledge that, you tend to then go, I'm not going to accept that in a relationship.
Mm.
So it's about knowing yourself, knowing what boundaries you have to keep, and also as well, yeah, there's self work that needs to be done so that you can become confident. Confident doesn't mean talking up; it just means the way you hold yourself. Because honestly, when we're hunting, we are literally looking for people that are unconfident. So when you said obviously you were struggling with that thought. If that thought is having strength, too much strength in your life, we are gonna see it. We smell it like blood.
Mhm.
And we'll see it on everything you do. We're like, okay, yeah, but she's not really that confident about herself.
Mhm.
I can get her. Yeah, I can get her.
You know what I think confident also entails? I think being confident is not only upholding boundaries, but
Mm.
it's the state of being okay of being without, right?
Ooh.
So like I mentioned earlier that in my earlier 20s, I accepted behaviors from certain men because I was so desperate for love in a relationship. I'm now in a space where I'm okay not having that.
Mm.
I'm okay not having that. I'm so confident in who I am. I'm confident in what I deserve
Come on.
enough to where I'm not going to settle for this BS. Right.
Mm.
So before I even get to the stage where I have to uphold my boundaries, I'm practicing eliminating certain things and certain people. Like you're not
Mm.
even gonna get to the point where you get to experience my boundaries. Like you're not gonna get that far, right? Because I'm okay literally with us never doing anything, us
Mm.
never going out, us never having a relationship. I'm just okay not having that because it's not what it's supposed to be.
Mm.
So a lot of people need to practice like knowing that you'll be fine even if you don't have these things. And that doesn't mean it's never going to come because I don't think I'm going to be in this state forever. I just feel like it's going to take a little bit longer than I would personally like it to. But sitting in that and being okay with it, that's confidence
Mm.
as well. is like having this ability to just be by yourself.
Mm. I love that. Listen, you know what? We can talk all day, but we've reached the time limit. So I want to honor the time limit. Listen, part two, I think we'll do a part two. I want to talk about desperation because I think that is what I wanted to talk about, but you encapsulate it very, very well. So anybody listening to Dark Arts podcast, really appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you've enjoyed the conversation, listen, make sure you leave a like, share, subscribe. I know this will be also on YouTube as well. So you can do that as well for us. But share this with somebody else, man. You know, if you've enjoyed it, if you've identified yourself with this, share it with somebody else. Let someone else be blessed. You know what I'm saying? Robert, any final thoughts before we jump out of here?
Yeah, all F boys need to be burned alive. No, I'm just
Yeah.
joking. Um, I would say, just like we said, confidence is key. Love
Mm.
yourself, and that will really protect you from a whole lot of nothing.
Love that. Listen, audience, we're gonna drop a part two. When the part two drops, we're gonna talk about desperation. We're also gonna talk about accountability. Yes, because you see, I like to talk about this big word, accountability. Even if you are the victim, I want to talk about accountability. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can't get played for the rest of your life. We need to learn. All right. So we're gonna talk about that in part two. So appreciate it, guys. Stay locked and stay loaded as always, and we can't wait to see you again next time for another enthralling conversation. Dark Arts Podcast, baby. We appreciate you.